Welcome to a Sunday night / Monday morning edition of Fantasy Football Today. Adam, Dave, and Jamey here. Dave, how many Sundays? We're getting really close, huh?
4 Sundays to go, gentlemen.
Woo!
4 Sundays, which is how many Sundays I had today, by the way. They were delicious.
Design your ice cream sundae. What does it look like?
Hot fudge brownie at the bottom. We're going to have chocolate soft serve on top, drizzled with hot fudge and a Diet Coke.
Well, what are the ice cream flavors, though?
No, just chocolate soft serve.
Chocolate soft serve, that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
What the hell? That's, wow, you had 4 of those? I wouldn't even want 4 of those.
No, that was just one of the 4.
Okay. Jamey,
one
what
had
was
banana in it. One had Kahlua. That's good.
Jamey, what was the most delicious part of your weekend?
The most delicious part of my weekend.
I got something that really was delicious, but you asked Jamey, not me.
The most delicious? We had good chocolate babka.
Really?
Oh, babka is so good.
Wow, Shraggy B likes babka.
Schrager knows what babka is.
But he doesn't know the Seinfeld reference, I guarantee that.
No idea.
Yeah.
He has no idea what Yoda is, but he knows what babka is. Okay.
All right, guys. We got a half PPR draft to review here. And a lot of news. Melvin Gordon struggling with the altitude. Jonathan Taylor and A.J. Dillon are big. That's the news of the weekend. They are big people. We got a handcuff potentially for Christian McCaffrey. I've got the, quote, the best shape of his life segment, which is just players who are getting rave reviews this time of year, which is no surprise. And yeah, that draft plus your emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. I want to start with a lukewarm take at the start of the show. As we've been doing these mock drafts, I don't really know if I want picks 2 through 6. I kind of feel like I like later picks. That's my lukewarm take. Jamey, what is your reaction to that?
That's stupid. But that's not surprising coming from you.
Wait a minute. So you're okay with first overall?
Yeah.
Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, no go. You don't want them.
Because I never get a good number 2 running back. I've had an early pick almost every mock draft we do, and
But you're not going to get one at 1 either. So what's the difference?
because McCaffrey, like he's 100 catches. It's just, I'll take it. I can't stand not having a number 2 running back that I love. It just bothers me so much. I could never get one when I have an early pick.
Once you get past Mr. Bridge, Aaron Jones, who's the guy that you like?
My next running back would be Connor or Carson.
So take them in round 3.
No.
Why?
Oh, in round 3? In round 3, I might. But I usually like the wide receivers better there. Don't you?
There's probably more wide receivers that would be there for you in round 3 than round 2. And so let's just say that Connor and Carson are the only 2 number 2 running backs that you'd be happy with. But there's a list of 5 or 6 wide receivers that you would take in round 2, and some of them will make it back to you in round 3.
But
so
I think
you just take the running back first.
Like in this draft, you took Juju. That's the great spot for him. Godwin was 1 pick ahead. That's, he may slip. We take DJ Moore sooner than most people. DJ Moore most likely will be there at one of the 2 spots. You got Hopkins, who Dave took right after you. He's going to be in that range too.
Well, before you go on, I had the second pick. I took Barkley. Right.
You took Barkley.
Yeah, I took Barkley 1. Yeah,
right.
No. You were referencing the draft. I had the second pick, and it happens every time.
I'm saying like the receivers that were there for you. That's the range for those guys. So I wouldn't pass on one of them, but I think you could. And right after you took Kenny Golladay in round 3, James Conner went. So.
Right. Who would you have taken? Would you have gone? So, right. That's the decision you have to make, right? I took Barkley with the first pick, and then I took Juju with my second pick. That's 23rd overall. Dave took Hopkins and Mahomes, and then I took Kenny Golladay. But, yeah, Connor and Carson were the next 2 running backs off the board. They were there. What would you guys have done? Would you have taken Kenny Golladay? This was half PPR. Or would you have taken Connor or any running back that was available at that point?
I would have taken Connor.
I would have taken the receiver.
I almost took Connor ahead of Mahomes, but I wanted to see what my team would look like with McCaffrey and Mahomes on it. And just to see if I would actually like it, taking the first quarterback off the board.
I think, yeah, I was going to take Mahomes because Dave had the first pick, I had the second pick. I was going to take Mahomes in the 3rd round. I didn't think Dave was going to take him in the 2nd round, but he did. But man, like I said, round 3 has been a really bad spot in drafts for running backs. It's just it just seems like every year there's just a lot of busts there. Let's see. Last year it was Aaron Jones, Devontae Freeman, Kerryon Johnson, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Sony Michel. These are round 3 picks. The year before that, Jerick McKinnon, can't fault that. LaShawn McCoy, horrible. Alex Collins, terrible. Royce Freeman, even worse than Alex Collins. And Kenyon Drake was okay. So
go back to last year. What were the guys again?
This is
2 of them were good.
This is according to Fantasy Football.
How many?
2 out of 6. Aaron Jones was great. Josh Jacobs finished as RB 16, 17. And then Devontae Freeman was okay. Kerryon Johnson, David Montgomery, Sony Michel, but they're not as good as the wide receivers. Well, you know what I'm saying. But anyway,
guys this year are going to be bad. Connor, Carson, Gurley, Gordon. Those are going to be the 4 we see in round 3 every draft.
Right. What do you think about that group?
I mean, you could see the red flags for all of them. I mean, Connor's had a hard time staying healthy. Gurley's already limping through the locker room. Melvin Gordon can't breathe in Denver and has a pretty good backup to him in Phillip Lindsay.
Right.
And Chris Carson, the Seahawks can screw with him by using Carlos Hyde. Thankfully, he's back, after the personal issue that he was dealing with. But if they, play a little bit more up-tempo, plus he's, not been able to finish 2 of 4 seasons in his career.
Yeah, well. So, okay, somebody says to you, you can have any spot in the draft. Where are you taking? Where are you going?
4
through 6.
1 through 6, you said, Jamey?
No, 2 through 6, just because you hate it. Who wants McCaffrey?
No, I want McCaffrey. I'll take 1. I'll sacrifice for McCaffrey.
I actually like the back end a little bit better. I think you lock up 2 of those running backs. It's pretty easy to do, and you get.
That's what I was saying.
Huh?
That's exactly what I was saying.
Well, it's not that I dislike 2 through 6. I just, if given the choice, I would have no problem, picking in the back end. But I like picking 2 through 6 also because, look, you came away with Saquon Barkley, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Golladay. That's a pretty awesome start.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the rest of my team a little bit later. But I just thought it was funny. We spent about 6 minutes kind of teasing me and then agreeing with me at the end, I think. At least Jamey did. So I'll take. And now I'm choking. All right.
Oh, my God.
You choked on your bad take.
Sports are back. And the Stitcher app is one of the best platforms to consume sports podcasts. They even have a new collection on their homepage of the app for the return of sports, where our friends from the CBS Sports Podcast Network, Fantasy Baseball Today, and Pick 6 are featured. Pretty sure Fantasy Football Today will be featured soon. Stitcher also makes it incredibly easy to build playlists of your favorite podcasts. So download Stitcher for free in the App Store. And we love Stitcher. They've been a great partner of ours. We're very thankful to be on there, popular on there. For all of you listening on Stitcher, thank you so much. It's a great way to hear some shows. We're mock drafting Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch with Adam Rank. He's joining us, another great fantasy analyst, and we're giving away 8 spots in our Twitchner. How about our Twitch Listeners League to subscribers? Twitch.com/FF
I think we just came up with a name for the league.
Twitchers. Love it. All right. Okay, by the way, we're back to CBS Sports HQ, full hour of Fantasy Football Today, noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. Wow. Monday through Friday. Wow. This has been a horrible start to the show. Can I tell you why?
You want to take over?
Can I tell you what's going on right now? I forgot to put the air conditioning on. And I'm here for another 50 minutes. And
How do you forget to put air conditioning?
Here's what we'll do. You go put your air conditioning on. I'll tell everybody what we're doing on HQ. Go.
All right. I appreciate that. All right. I'll be back.
So here's what we have on HQ this week. We're doing a little buy or sell on Monday, and we're going to be joined by Aaron Reese of The Athletic to talk about the Texans, to give us the lowdown on those receivers. Tuesday through Friday, we're going to go through all of the draft spots that you are going to want to pick from. So we'll tease Adam a little bit by saying he does not want picks 2 through 6. And we're going to be joined by 4 reporters who cover the AFC North. Our buddy Nathan Zagura is going to join us to talk about the Browns. Mark Cobley is going to join us to talk about the Steelers. Jeff Zaribiak is going to join us to talk about the Ravens. And who am I forgetting? Tyler Dragon's going to join us to talk about the Bengals. So we're going to get you all the insight you need. These interviews have been absolutely fantastic. And I'm sorry that Adam doesn't let me talk about them on the podcast because they've been very, very insightful.
I don't have to let you talk about them. You talk about them no matter what. Let's get into news and notes. Thank you for that. Make sure you're watching HQ. Melvin Gordon struggling with altitude. He's playing in Denver now. Pictures are surfacing of Jonathan Taylor and A.J. Dillon, and we know they are massive people, very well built. Aaron Rodgers said this about Dillon, quote, "It'll be exciting to see him get up to speed mentally. That's going to be his biggest hurdle, especially with the guys in that room who have a pretty good comfort within the offense. But he's a big boy."
How about their general manager, Brian Gutekunst, comparing him to Eddie Lacy? That's not something people want to hear.
Once upon a time, that wasn't a bad thing.
I'm in total agreement with you, but you hear that name and it's just like, oh no. And Eddie Lacy, he was on our telethon last year. What a nice man that guy is.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting first-team reps, and CBSSports.com was writing about this, and they've had all 21 seasons of Andy Reid as a head coach, and his backfield splits. And their conclusion was, in his 21 seasons as a head coach, Reid has used what could reasonably be described as a committee backfield only twice in a season where his number one back stayed healthy.
Once was last year.
Once was last year. Once was 2003 between
it's not how he rolls.
Brian Westbrook and Carell Buckhalter.
Right. You know, the Melvin Gordon thing, I saw it in the notes. I went and looked back at how he did in 4 career games at Denver, just to get an idea of like how much of an issue this could really be. 110 total yards last year.
But 20 carries, though. That's the important thing. He wasn't tired.
Yeah. For his very first time playing there, 23 carries, 111 yards. Didn't have a lot of yards the second time, but he caught a touchdown. Third time only had 13 touches, had 66 total yards, and then over 100 total last time. So good for fantasy 3 out of the 4 years.
Okay, well, so I gave you some running back notes on Gordon, on Taylor, on Dillon, on Edwards-Helaire. Is there anything significant? By the way, can I just say how happy I am to be getting these like dumb fluff stories right now? Like I missed this. There's a lack of football buzz. I think we're about to hit it. I think it's just delayed this year. And I know that these stories are going to come out. Oh, the rookies are great. We love them. The new addition is great. But
unless you're DeAndre Swift.
Right. It's always telling the ones who you don't hear enough about. You almost wonder, well, are they trying to keep him a secret? Because it'd be weird to keep him a secret. Or is there something wrong?
So what's standing out? What's standing out to you guys? Anything major?
I say this all the time, and this is something that I fall victim to. It's the things that you want affirmation of what you believe in. So if you hear something that, like Josh Jacobs, I think is going to be more involved in the passing game. He comes out and says he's going to catch 60 passes. I know that's not realistic, but now it makes me more encouraged that he can get to 30 or maybe 40. So if that's the takeaway, that's encouraging. If you're in the camp of Deshaun Jackson is going to be the best Eagles wide receiver and you hear that he's looking as fast as ever, you're going to be excited about that. Conversely, like if Dave may not be happy about that because he's Jalen Reagor guy, so
I like both of those guys.
No, but what I'm saying is, like I know you're excited about Reagor. I'm not that you're not excited about Deshaun, but like Brandon Aiyuk, he gets a chance to have a big opportunity. And Kyle Shanahan is saying he's further ahead than any rookie he's ever seen. So now it's okay. Now that's a guy you get excited about because there's a chance there. So it's those type of things I think is what you look at. Not necessarily the beat reporter stuff, because those guys are making guesses and they're trying to get stories out there, which we appreciate clearly. But those are the things I think you got to be a little bit more leery of, as opposed to maybe what the coach is saying.
There's 2 other things I'd bring up. Number one, and this is what I love, Adam. I love going through Twitter and seeing the video highlights of players. And so it's football players doing football things. Like there was a run, the Vikings posted a run by their fullback. CJ Ham has a big run. Now I know I'm not going to tell people, oh, this means that CJ Ham is going to be a big time part of the Minnesota offense. Go draft him with your last pick. But it just looks like pro football, and it's cool to see. Like there's a whole DK Metcalf thing that circulated on Sunday where somebody said that he burned a defensive back, and there were former NFL cornerbacks that said, no, he didn't burn them. They're just practicing. It's not a big deal. So you watch it and you enjoy it, but it shouldn't really impact your opinion of a player. The second thing that I was going to say is anytime there's news that comes out that's a little bit surprising, I always take notice of. And a case in point is that Edwards-Helaire apparently didn't practice. He dressed, but he didn't practice on Sunday. Guess who was the first team running back for Kansas City?
Deontay Thompson?
No, I don't know who that is. I don't know who Deontay Thompson is.
Darwin
You just
Thompson.
made up somebody.
Darwin Thompson. Sorry.
No, it was
Deontay
actually
Thompson used to be a wide receiver.
Yeah, but he's not a running back on the Chiefs.
No, Darrell Williams was the guy.
Yeah, Darrell Williams was the first guy up. Not DeAndre Washington, not Darwin Thompson, not Deontay Thompson, not Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Like things that I didn't know and never really consider when it comes out. I'm like, oh, that's definitely interesting, and maybe something to just file away for later. But one person was like tweeting me saying, "That's it. That's the handcuff. If I get Edwards-Helaire, I'm drafting Darrell Williams, however you pronounce it."
Deontay.
Thank you.
But actually, the 49ers news that I found interesting was that Kyle Shanahan is not ruling out Deebo Samuel for week 1, but he would be surprised if Samuel played. But you might be looking at a 1 to 2 week absence. And in the draft that we're going to review, Jamey took Deebo Samuel in the 10th round. So he's becoming quite a bargain here. Chris Herndon's getting a little love. Sam Darnold's getting a little love. Matt Rule, the new head coach of the Panthers, really likes Mike Davis, apparently. That might be the backup to Christian McCaffrey if you are so inclined.
That's an example of something that you may not have known. Like you knew that he was there and Reggie Bonifant is there, and they might split up the work if McCaffrey, gets lost in traffic or something like that. But maybe this is something to file away, that Mike Davis could be the guy that would get the first opportunity in that offense.
Darrington Evans fumbled twice on Sunday. That's never good for a rookie or for anyone.
He fumbled twice in were they in full pads? Because that's a little crazy if you're fumbling just wearing a helmet.
I don't think you can be in full pads yet, right?
Right. Well, I don't think so. I think a lot of it starts on Monday.
Okay.
So that's kind of funny.
It's not good. Brian Edwards was ahead of Henry Ruggs in practice. We'll see.
Right. Another example.
What?
That's in 2 receiver sets. It makes sense that they're going to play him in the slot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, but wouldn't you want to have? Never mind. We're trying to get going here. Sorry.
Well, yeah. I mean, right. That's the thing. Like these reports could change every day, so it's probably not worth getting too into it right now. But Sony Michel may not be ready for week 1. We know that. Keep that in mind. Then I have the best shape of his life, a.k.a. players getting rave reviews segment. Laviska Shenault. This is what Gardner Minshew said to the Florida Times-Union. Laviska is a freak, man. I knew it when we played him at Colorado. He's a lot better route runner, a lot better at catching the ball than I even expected. That's cool. CeeDee Lamb.
He's interesting.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb's getting love. Brandon Ayuk's getting love. Bryce Love is getting love. ESPN's John Kimes thinks, though, that Antonio Gibson could fill Darius Geis's role.
Whoa.
Yeah.
He could fill Geis's role?
Unless they had Geis just pegged as a passing downs guy, and AP was going to be the first and second down guy.
Yeah, right.
And Benny Snell's lost weight. This is from Eddie Faulkner, the Steelers running backs coach, to The Athletic. Yes, it's true. Benny looks better. He has done a lot of running. You can see the work he has put in. The exciting part about it is he did it while being away from us. So he had a focus on getting right and getting in the best shape that he can. So I'm excited about Benny Snell. That is a guy that is passionate and loves the game.
He also talked about how Snell's a good pass protector and pass catcher. And that's interesting.
Yeah.
Again, something we didn't know to file away. If you get Connor, maybe you draft Snell too. Maybe.
Oh, let's get into the mock draft then, and we'll finish the show with emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. This was a 12-team half PPR mock draft with 3 wide receivers and a flex. And looking at the last 2 seasons, the top players in this format are almost always running backs. 2 years ago, the top 6 players were running backs, not including quarterbacks. And last year, Michael Thomas was number 2, but 7 of the top 8 players were running backs. So, as always, in any format, if you get that elite running back, that's the most valuable currency, I guess, in fantasy football. Okay. Did you guys have, Dave, you kind of experimented a little bit with having McCaffrey and Mahomes. You had the first pick. I had the second pick. I took a little bit of a different strategy, went a little more running back heavy early to see how I liked it. Jamey, you had the 7th pick? 6th pick, and you took Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Michael Thomas. That was the first pick that really jumped out at me.
I like it.
So why don't we start with that? Why don't we start with round 1? McCaffrey, Barkley, Kamara, Zeke, Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire to Jamey, Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, Joe Mixon to Ben Schrager, who put together a very nice team, Miles Sanders, Julio Jones, and Tyreek Hill. Pretty pretty normal round one, but I do think that the Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Michael Thomas pick and over Joe Mixon and Miles Sanders is the most interesting one. Jamey, what was your thought process?
Oh, I mean, I think Edwards-Helaire, I'm going to struggle with Edwards-Helaire at 5 over Dalvin Cook, potentially at some point in the next couple of weeks, just because I think he has the chance to be so special. So to take him at 6 is easy for me.
Easy. Okay, what about in full PPR?
I would have done the same. Yeah, I think he's just got a chance to be a rock star. So Thomas is awesome. He's, as we've talked about, the floor is safer. The ceiling is just as high. But it's position scarcity, and it's a guy who this is banking on Andy Reid as much as it's banking on Edwards-Helaire.
Jamey, if Derrick Henry had 300 touches last year instead of 400, would you have considered him over Edwards-Helaire at 6?
No way in any format that rewards points for catches.
Okay, because I'm taking Henry over Edwards-Helaire in a non-PPR, so I'm just
I get it.
Kind of just gauging how you feel about that half.
Yeah,
PPR,
I'm for the most part out on Henry unless he falls to the end of round 1 in non-PPR, and that's not going to happen.
Well, that was my next question. Was Derrick Henry is the second pick of round 2, 14th overall. As we get into round 2, if you've forgotten who the last 6 picks were after Jamey took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round, it was Thomas, Adams, Mixon, Sanders, Jones, and Hill. 4 receivers, 2 running backs. So we go to round 2. Eckler is the first pick, then Henry, Kelsey, Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones. 6 of the first 7 picks in round 2 are running backs. The other one is Travis Kelce. Jamey had Aaron Jones, so he went with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Aaron Jones. If we stop there, Eckler, Henry, Kelsey, Jacobs, Drake, Chubb, and Jones. All right, we see the theme obviously here with the running backs, but you look at ADP on Fantasy Pros, Derrick Henry in half PPR is going 6th overall. You look on NFC, he's going 8th. Why does CBS? Why are we down on Derrick Henry?
Well, I mean, you look at the people who drafted in the bottom half of that first round. One is Gretsch. We know he's not going to take Derrick Henry. And we've talked about this quite a bit. We've done so many drafts together that, people start to realize what the trends are of what we're all doing, whether it's us as the analysts or just people who have obviously done enough mock drafts that they know who they like and they don't like. Thomas and Adams, I think, is in a different conversation here because of what they do at their position. But it's, and probably Schrager's a good person to ask her because he took Mixon over Derrick Henry. Like I would have taken Henry in this format over Julio and Tyreek after Mixon and Sanders, but I would also put Josh Jacobs ahead of Henry because I think he's got a higher ceiling this year.
Okay, Schrager, you took Mixon in round 1. You didn't have a chance to draft Henry in round 2. You took Josh Jacobs, though. So why did you pass at 9th overall on Derrick Henry?
Henry was my next running back after Mixon, but I think the workloads in the rush game can be very similar this year. And I think Mixon can double Henry's catches. So I think it's a no-brainer to go Mixon over Henry. In PPR, this is half PPR. It was a tough choice, but went Mixon there.
I think people are just scared to count on Henry to do what he did last year again because they know that he's not versatile. It's hard to believe that he's suddenly going to be versatile. And no one wants to draft him that close to his ceiling in a league where catches count.
Okay. Well, it's also, you say what he did last year, Dave, which is correct, but it's which half of the season last year, because the first half he wasn't as good, clearly, as he was in the second half. And if you get that for 16 games, it's not a first-round pick, or he's not.
No, it's not even close. In 2018, he got off to a horrible start. And then those last 4 games.
4 games.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just a second half guy. He was okay to start last year. I don't want to say he was terrible.
He was top 12.
Right. But he wasn't.
But back in, he was like 10th in non-PPR, 12th in PPR. Now, that was with him not having a bye. So I don't know where he was per game. He was probably more like 12th in non-PPR, 15th in PPR, something like that. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't horrible, but he was probably more of like a second-round pick rather than a first-round pick. Okay, so round 2, Eckler, Henry, Kelsey, Jacobs, Drake, Chubb, Aaron Jones to Jamey. And then you know what's going to happen as soon as Aaron Jones comes off the board. Wide receivers. Well, it was George Kittle. And then DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, DeAndre Hopkins, all rounding out the second round. Anything jump out here?
I think it's worth talking about Hopkins and how he felt to me. Literally, I'm surprised he lasted that long.
It's only 2 spots off his ADP, though.
I know. I'm always surprised when he lasts the 20th overall because I think he's so good. I remember this weekend they played a bunch of Chiefs games, and they included one against Houston on NFL Network. And I'm just watching for like a quarter and a half, and Hopkins is just making plays all over the place. And I cannot believe that the Cardinals traded for him, and they're going to say, okay, you're going to get an even amount of targets with Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald, and we're all going to be even all along. Like that doesn't register. It doesn't compute with me the way that it might with you guys.
With those guys, because I don't think anybody expects him to be even with those guys. I think it's just a matter of how much more he's going to get than those guys.
Right, and I think there's a chance that he could be.
If you hear Kyler Murray saying that
50 targets more,
that they're going to get 1,000 yards out of all three
guys.
Yeah,
right.
Well, I mean, look,
1,000 yards out of all three?
Huh?
Out of Larry Fitzgerald too?
Somebody asked him if he could get 1,000 yards out of all three of those receivers, and of course he's going to say, "Yeah." What's he going to say?
No, I can't.
Hell no, Larry can't run anymore. He's old.
But you look at
this
offense that he's stepping into, that Hopkins is stepping into, and it's a spread offense. So is he going from 150 targets to 140, which is what Heath has him projected for, or I think it's going to be closer to 120. And so with 120, he's still going to be very good. He's still worth going in this range, but I don't think he should go much higher than that.
But this is actually quite a fall, I think, for Hopkins, because Jamey, in Fantasy Pros, Hopkins is the 12th pick, and he's the 4th wide receiver.
That's such a reach.
And I think, right, Dave got him 24th here, and I think
I was so happy. I was thrilled
to see DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, and Juju Smith-Schuster go ahead of him.
Well, I mean, again, Adam, you made that choice.
Oh, yeah. I love Juju. I mean, but I would have taken Hopkins over Moore for sure. And between Godwin and Hopkins, I don't know. It would have been pretty close. But I think the tight end's going ahead of him, too. Is that a no-brainer? Kelsey and Kittle, should they both go ahead of him?
Kelsey, yeah.
Okay. So what about Kittle, Dave? Kittle or Hopkins?
No, I'll take Hopkins over Kittle.
All right. Round 3, it gets more interesting. Mahomes, Galladay, Connor, Calvin Ridley, Chris Carson, Mike Evans to Jamey, Mahomes to Dave, Galladay to me, Connor, Ridley, Carson, Evans, Gurley, Kupp, Allen Robinson, A.J. Brown, Adam Thielen, Melvin Gordon. So I don't want to go round by round here. I want to start with this. Dave, now you've got Patrick Mahomes. So you've got McCaffrey, Hopkins, and Mahomes. You took Mahomes over Galladay. You took him over Connor. How do you think it turned out?
Hold on, let me practice my Heath sigh. I think I'm resigned to the fact that when you're picking at the very end, you can't really, you just have to take the 2 best players available. Because you know that by the time things get back to you, guys that you like, you can have a list of 7, 8 guys. None of them are going to make it back unless your list is whack. So I decided to experiment and say, okay, Mahomes, I think, is just the best overall player, most total fantasy points. I think he's good value anywhere in round 3. I took him. And what happened after that made me regret it. And if I had played to how my rankings are, I would have taken Connor there just to lock up that second running back, because I do like Connor as an RB2. But I knew for sure Mahomes and Lamar Jackson weren't going to make it back to me. But I was hoping that I would have a better selection of a number 2 running back when I was up again in 4 or 5.
Okay, so let's go to that, right? So your first 3 picks are McCaffrey, Hopkins, and Mahomes. Now, this is a 6-point per passing touchdown league where you have to start 3 wide receivers and a flex. Now we go to the end of round 4. The end of round 4, the beginning of round 5.
We're only talking about what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Or do you want to bring up your team too?
No, let's go with your team. Let's go with your team, right? Because I was going to take Mahomes if you didn't. I want to know why your next 2 picks are DK Metcalf and Zach Ertz, why you didn't take a running back there, because your number 2 running back came at the end of round 6, and that was Cam Akers. You could have taken Ronald Jones. I'm surprised you didn't. You went with Metcalf and Ertz.
I was secretly hoping Ronald Jones would make it back to me because I know that I'm the only guy.
Oh, 24 picks later?
About it. It was a long shot, but I also wanted to play it safe.
Okay.
And so at that point, I thought to myself, well, McCaffrey's kind of like a running back and a half. So whoever I get to be my RB2 may not have to produce like a top 12 guy. And I do love Ronald Jones. I love him with all my heart. But I couldn't pass up Ertz. I thought that was incredible value that he made it to the top of round 5. Maybe not incredible, but good. And Metcalf's somebody that I like a lot, especially in a half PPR, because I'm not sure he's going to get a lot of catches, but I think he's going to be pretty prolific, more so than last year. So I went that direction instead.
So Dave has the number 1 running back, the number 1 or 2 quarterback. I thought it was also interesting that Mahomes went 25th overall. Lamar Jackson went 37th overall.
I hated that. Well, that made me feel like 2-week-old bread.
Why? You couldn't get him. He went with the first pick of the next round.
I want to. When I take Mahomes, I know I'm going to see other quarterbacks go at a value that make me rage a little bit, just a little bit. Like, I'm happy to have Mahomes. I know that he can win me the league, but I know that there's going to be quarterbacks that I would love that I can get 8 rounds later and someone else gets them. But to see Lamar Jackson go with the first pick in round 4, it felt like I got slapped in the face with a purple gloved hand.
No, it shouldn't feel that way though, because
that's how it felt, man.
You didn't have a chance to get him. It's not like he went after your next pick.
I know, but if I had known that, I don't know. I feel like it was so disrespectful to see him go that late. That was ridiculous. And someone else, like the very next quarterback off the board was a much better value than what I got. So I was feeling jealousy and rage, and I turned into the Incredible Hulk, and I smashed a whole carton of ice cream.
By smash you meant 8. I was surprised that Jackson lasted that long. But I want to talk about Dave's team. But Jamey, you have the 6th pick of the 3rd round, and so far you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Aaron Jones. Did you think about taking Lamar Jackson? You took Mike Evans instead.
No, I wanted to get one of my top 10 wide receivers, and Evans just makes too much sense at that spot.
All right. So Dave's team: McCaffrey, Hopkins, Mahomes, DK Metcalf, and Zach Ertz. Cam Akers, and you took Darius Slayton with the first pick of round 7. Then you took Zach Moss and Darrell Henderson to lock up the Rams backfield. We'll see what Malcolm Brown's role is. Tony Pollard and DeAndre Washington. You're just taking some shots here. So
I would scorched earth on upside lotto tickets.
All right, so you got Mahomes, you got McCaffrey, Akers, Henderson, Damian Harris, DeAndre Washington, Zach Moss, Tony Pollard, and you're just hoping there's an injury or somebody emerges there. That's fine. Hopkins, Metcalf, Slayton, plus Robbie Anderson and Emmanuel Sanders, and you have Zach Ertz. Do you like your team?
Not my favorite team. No, not my favorite team. And it actually ended up influencing me in the Kings Classic draft over the weekend, where I had the chance to get Mahomes and Jackson. They were both still on the board in late round 4. And now I'm thinking, oh my God, they're falling. This is crazy. And it's great. I probably should take one of them. And I had, the 4th to last pick in round 4, and then it would come back around and I'd have the 4th pick in round 5. And I thought, maybe they'll slip a little bit farther. And so I took a wide receiver instead. I think I took Lockett, and both of them went almost immediately after I took Lockett. And I was sitting there going, well, that sucks, because here we go again, 2 amazing quarterback values that I had the chance to take, and I got a little bit greedy. And then it came back to me in late round 6, and Deshaun Watson was still there. And
that's 6 points or 4 points for passing touchdown?
I believe it's 4, but getting Deshaun Watson that late round 6, I was doing cartwheels
and crushing ice cream.
Yes.
All right, Jamey, do you like Dave's team? Mahomes, McCaffrey, Rams running backs, and a bunch of lottery tickets, plus Hopkins, Metcalf, Slayton, and Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's never a bad thing when you have the number 1 quarterback and number 1 wide receiver, or number 1 running back and quarterback to start, and then you have a guy that has still top 5 potential at the receiver position. Zach Ertz is still in the conversation to be a top 3 tight end, and he has a lot. That's what you do if you miss on a second running back. You just take as many shots as you potentially can. So he has what should be 1 backfield locked up with the Rams. He has. A lot of people think that Zach Moss is going to be better than Devin Singletary. We're not in that category, but I mean, at least I'll speak for myself. I don't think it's far off that Moss can be better than Singletary this year. And then, Zeke goes down. There's a, winner for you. This is why you don't necessarily take your handcuff. You take other people's handcuffs. So there's a lot to like about those guys. I think just, when you look at his starting lineup and you see Cam Akers at the second running back spot, Darius Slayton, who's a questionable number 3 wide receiver. I think he's a good number 3 wide receiver, but he's still questionable for some people. And Robbie Anderson at the flex, those are the spots that kind of stand out to you. But I mean, he should dominate anybody's running back 1v1 and quarterback 1v1.
Yeah. All right. So I had the second pick and I did things a little bit differently. And I had been, if I had an early pick, I had been sort of taking the Dave approach of not really prioritizing running back, probably going with like 2 running backs with my first 5 picks. But this time I went with 3 because I'm so sick of having nothing but lottery tickets basically on my bench because they could be great, but they also could be completely terrible. I was tired of having that. So I had Barkley in round 1, Juju in round 2, Galladay in round 3. I was pretty happy with that. And then I took Devin Singletary at the end of round 4, and I was happy. I thought for sure Ronald Jones would go, but he didn't, so I took Ronald Jones in round 5. That gives me 3 running backs with my first 5 picks, and then I took DeAndre Swift at the end of round 6. 4 running backs with my first 6 picks, plus Juju Smith-Schuster and Kenny Galladay. I then took round 7, Kyler Murray. I was actually pretty excited about that. If I hadn't taken Murray, the best running, I wasn't going to take a 5th running back there. I could have taken maybe Evan Ingram. I could have taken Marvin Jones, Julian Edelman. I'm taking Kyler Murray. He's the most league-winning upside, I think, of anyone in that round. Maybe J.K. Dobbins, you could argue, but again, I wasn't taking another running back.
Do you know how gross it was to take Darius Slayton ahead of Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson? All Mahomes, 3 of those guys were left there. Oh, man. I was mad. I wish I could go back and not take Patrick Mahomes. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'd rather have Connor, who I would have taken over Mahomes, and one of those quarterbacks versus what I got.
So let's see how my team turned out. I think it's okay. I don't mind it. And basically my goal was to not hate my running backs. Kyler Murray at quarterback, Saquon Barkley, Devin Singletary, and I'll say Ronald Jones is my flex in week 1. Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Galladay, and Sterling Shepard as my 3 wide receivers. Noah Fant is my tight end. Jared Cook is a backup. I also have Paris Campbell, Steven Sims, and James Washington. So whereas, a lot of times I'd have high upside running backs on my bench, this time, I have DeAndre Swift as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty good.
And I have Alexander Madison. Yeah. So I do have high upside running backs on my bench, but I have Steven Sims, Paris Campbell, and James Washington, who I think is a good pairing with Juju Smith-Schuster on my bench. I actually like my team. I think it's a playoff team. Things go right, it could win. But Jamey, how do you feel about this team?
I like it. I think, like you said, you're in good shape with your. It's Shepard and Slayton are very similar in as you guys have as your 3rd receivers because a lot of people don't know who's going to be the best Giants wide receiver. I would take Shepard over Slayton in any PPR scoring. So I like that edge that you have there just in comparing to Dave. But I mean, look, you like Singletary, you like Jones. If Swift is the guy for Detroit, like I think we're all hoping, then that's a great 4th running back for you, unless Jones struggles again. But yeah, you have a top tier quarterback and one of the best running backs in the game. So it's a very solid team.
And I wanted to stop with this pattern that I was falling into of just being so weak at running back and taking a whole bunch of players who, they could be great, but they also could be terrible. And not, as far as I remember, not a single one panned out last year. So I still have Alexander Madison. And I still have DeAndre Swift, who I took in the 6th round. But the difference for me in this draft was after starting my team with Barkley, Juju, and Galladay, and then taking Devin Singletary at the end of round 4. That's a very typical start. It was the Ronald Jones pick in round 5 instead of Cortland Sutton or Keenan Allen or DJ Chark. That is where if Ben Gretsch were on here, he'd hate it, and I get it. That is where I differed, and I think I prefer this method where I actually feel like I like Sutton better than Ronald Jones, but position scarcity does matter. And there are still good wide receivers later in the draft. It's not like running back is the only position where you can find great players late. So I think that I like what I did here.
I think the thing that you should buy into if you're picking 2 through 6 is even if you're not an Aaron Jones guy, which, he's going to be another polarizing player in the 2nd round. If you're not an Aaron Jones guy and you don't want to take one of the tight ends, take your 2 favorite wide receivers and then especially in the 3 receiver league, put your third receiver on the back burner a little bit, because like you said, you found Sterling Shepard, they found Darius Slate. You're going to find Marvin Jones. You said he was somebody that you considered instead of Kyler Murray.
Well, no, I didn't.
You're going to find some guys that are still in that 30 to 40 range that have still, decent upside, maybe not league winning upside, but starting upside.
Wide receiver 2 upside.
Sure. Wide receiver 2 upside. Go ahead and put it. So you have wide receiver 2 upside with those guys. But you're taking, similar to what Dave did, you just did it a little bit more aggressively. You're taking more shots at the running back position because you didn't get a number 2 guy that you're so in love with.
Okay, so let's go to Jamey's team, and then we'll finish up with some emails here. Jamey had the 6th pick, and by the way, when Jamey said if you have a 2 through 6, get your 2 running backs, your 2 wide receivers, and then wait, he obviously meant rounds 2 and 3, get your wide receivers.
Right. I'm sorry. After picking your running back in the first round, take 2 wide receivers, as opposed to, being upset about not getting those round 3 guys, which could be terrible, as we've illustrated.
Okay. So Jamey had the 6th pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Aaron Jones, Mike Evans. We know those were his first 3 picks. Round 4, Tyler Lockett. Round 5, David Johnson.
Yeah, I'm glad you took Ronald Jones over David Johnson. I appreciate that.
Hey, anytime. I think maybe you would have gone wide receiver if Sutton, Keenan Allen, or DJ Chark had been there. What do you think?
Not with David Johnson still on the board in round 5, no.
Oh, you like David Johnson in round 5?
In that spot, absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about
another guy getting rave reviews, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he gets rave reviews every year.
So Jamey's was one of my favorite teams, but he does have a low-end starting quarterback, at least on draft day. Ben Roethlisberger is the only quarterback on his team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Aaron Jones, plus David Johnson and David Montgomery and A.J. Dillon. So very good running backs. Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Deontay Johnson, Evan Ingram at tight end. On his bench, Henry Ruggs, Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, and Mike Gesicki. I mean, this is a great team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Aaron Jones, Montgomery, David Johnson, A.J. Dillon. And then you've got Evans, Lockett, and Deontay Johnson at receiver. Evan Ingram at tight end, Gesicki on the bench. Good bench wide receivers with Ruggs, Aiyuk, and Samuel. And Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, that's what stands out. But this is what your team could look like if you wait a wide receiver, Jamey.
Sorry.
Wide receiver? Quarterback. Air conditioning's not working, by the way.
What position does Roethlisberger play?
I hope he doesn't play wide receiver.
Deontay Thompson.
So I recently made a switch in my rankings. In the draft we did for Twitch the last Tuesday, which was PPR draft, the one we did with Big Jiggly Panda and Michelle
Majuk.
So I took Daniel Jones, and I had Daniel Jones ranked 13th, Roethlisberger 14th. And I'm looking at it, and I said, man, if I take Jones as my only quarterback, I got to play him against Pittsburgh in week 1. Why would I do that when I could take Roethlisberger playing the Giants in week 1? So I switched that in my rankings. If I'm taking a second quarterback as a upside play, I'm going to take Daniel Jones over Roethlisberger. So it comes down to, I think, what your team needs. And so in this draft, what I did was I took Gesicki after, when did I take Ingram? I think it was like round 8. I took Evan Ingram in round 8. I'm sorry, round 7.
Yeah.
So I took Evan Ingram in round 7. And I took Gesicki in round 13. 2 things. 1, I'm surprised Ben Gretsch didn't take him already. And 2, I knew that I needed a quarterback. And so I took Roethlisberger in round 14. I was sort of playing the board a little bit. Obviously, at that point, I think everybody had a quarterback. If I was doing this as a league I think we're going to play out, I probably would take 2 quarterbacks there as opposed to Gesicki. But that's the decision I think you have to make. Do you want to take 2 tight ends or 2 quarterbacks? But also knowing the way that we draft, again, this is knowing your league. I knew there were going to be quarterbacks available. I knew there's going to be somebody of the Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Drew Lock. Those guys will all be available. That if Roethlisberger gets hurt again, I'll be okay with finding somebody. Tannehill, I don't think was drafted. Tyrod Taylor. There's just a number of guys you could say that have a chance to help me in that position. It's clearly the weakest part of my team. But if you tell me that Roethlisberger is the weakest part of my team, then I think I did a good job drafting.
Only 16 quarterbacks were drafted in this draft. So if your league is going to be different, then you plan accordingly. But that just means there will be more values at the other positions.
And I think it was Schrager it was RJ who screwed me, taking Stafford, I think, as a second quarterback.
Did you have a favorite team, guys?
Mine.
Yours was one of my 2 favorites. Heath's was my other.
I like your team, Adam.
Oh,
I think you got really good value on Kyler.
yeah.
So maybe I'm just stuck on quarterback value today, and just really think that that's an important factor when you're putting together a fantasy team. And if you just end up not getting a good quarterback value, and you don't really feel good about anything when the quarterback's up, which at some point in the draft you will, then you just wait like Jamey did, and you get Roethlisberger, and you say, okay, Ben's my quarterback to start the year, and I'll figure it out from there. And that's the deepest position. That's the one to take advantage of. But I think if I could trade my team with anybody else, I think I'd pick yours, Adam, because you got luckier with the quarterback than I did. Quarterback value, I should say.
I just want to read Heath's team because that was my co-favorite. Russell Wilson, Alvin Kamara, and James Conner. Chris Godwin, Cortland Sutton, and Preston Williams. He loves Preston Williams.
That's another guy. He's in that Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton range. That if he hits,
yeah. LaShawn McCoy, carry on Johnson. Oh, Jonathan Taylor. That's why I like it, because Jonathan Taylor is his flex. Maybe not week 1, but he also has Darren Waller. He's got Denzel Mims, who's dealing with a hamstring injury. Deshaun Jackson, Laviska Shenault, Mike Williams on his bench. So he took Connor in round 3. Kamara, who was his second round pick? It was Kamara, Godwin, Connor. That's how he started. He's got a top 5 quarterback or top 6 quarterback with Wilson. He's got a top 6 tight end in Darren Waller, and Jonathan Taylor could be, a game changer for him. And
but even if it's not, he's still got great running backs.
Exactly.
Like that's the way. If you can map it out this way, and Jonathan Taylor is your 3rd running back, that's the way to draft him.
I'd love to know a month from now what Heath would do at the flex spot. Jonathan Taylor in a secondary role against Jacksonville, or Kerryon Johnson, presumably as the starter against the Bears.
Oh, wow. Well, the Bears don't have Eddie Goldman, so
I mean, he wasn't the linchpin on the run defense. He's a good run defender, but he's not.
He's part of it. I mean, look, that's the thing. It's like, if going in, Taylor, like, we're going to anticipate probably, maybe 10 touches, week 1 against the Jaguars. Mm-hmm. So 10 touches against the Jaguars, or maybe 15 touches against the Bears.
The Jaguars might have the worst run defense in football.
Huh?
Jaguars might have the worst run defense in football.
Right.
They're going to be Wait, but you know who? I'm telling you who his flex is. He might not agree.
Oh, Deshaun Jackson.
It's 100% Deshaun Jackson. Week 1 against the Redskins.
That could be his 3rd receiver, though.
Oh, that's true.
Right, because he's got Preston in there. Well, I mean, we'll see how Preston does a month from now.
That was a fun draft. I thought it was very good. And you know what? I don't know why I want to win mock drafts. I really recommend you guys, if you're doing a mock draft, don't worry so much about winning it. Worry about doing different strategies.
Learning from it.
Yeah. We actually have a conversation. When's Ben on? When Ben Gretsch on? Monday afternoon for Tuesday?
He's always on the Tuesday show.
Second show of the week.
I want to because he said something in Twitch that I think is worth discussing about finishing first versus finishing last. And I think it was Dave who had said that the catalyst for it was Dave saying something like finishing 5th. I don't remember how it all started, but I know what Ben said. And I think it's interesting because when you draft, your team is going to look so different. We say this time and time again, how much playing the waiver wire is important.
Yep.
And so I don't want to come out of my draft. Well, I guess I do, but I don't want it to be the end all be all, like, oh, I won my draft, so now my team is set. And I think talking to Ben about his philosophy, because like, are you setting yourself up to finish first now? Like, is that his goal? Which I don't think it is, because he's always talking about how your draft, your team is a living, breathing thing.
Uncomfortable, he says. His draft strategy is uncomfortable.
Right. So the way like Ben has a very unique way of drafting, and I think it's an interesting philosophy of how do you come out of your draft? Because if I go into my playoffs, for example, and I'm the 5th seed, but I'm better than the 1 seed at that point, I don't know if I'm phrasing this the right way, but
I know what you're saying.
Your team is peaking while the 1 seed,
I
maybe they had a lot of wins early on, and then
but
they have an injury or something.
Right. So like, if I come out of the draft as the 5th best team in the draft, like, I don't care right now if I'm happy with it.
I push back a little bit on like the Well, I wish we were having this conversation with Ben, but the whole like I draft teams to finish in first, not to make the playoffs, I think is kind of what he was saying. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a little overblown. You know, you don't have to.
Sure.
You don't have to, because a lot of the players that get drafted late with all this upside get dropped. That's my big issue with that strategy is, you have roster crunches.
So give me a handful of guys you think you get dropped. Like Chase Edmonds, you think you're going to drop him at some point?
You could, yeah.
Tony Pollard, you're going to drop him at some point?
Absolutely, you could.
Madison, you're going to drop him at some point?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying... Well, Madison maybe, could have a bigger role. But, yeah, yes, I think any of those guys, especially with COVID, if you're anticipating more players being absent, yeah, if they're getting 5 touches a game and really all they are lottery tickets, at some point you are probably going to have to drop them. I think so.
So,
I don't disagree with you, but that's the decision a lot of people are going to have to make.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think the only way you lose a draft is if the draft's over and you look at your team and you go, what have I done? I picked a bunch of players that I don't want. Why did I get James Conner when I think he stinks? Why did I get Tyler Lockett?
But that's how Ben drafts, though. Ben drafts, and I think again
Ben drafts players that he's got conviction on and that he really believes are going to be great. And I think that's the rule. I think you need to come out of your draft with players who you really, truly love and you want to have on your team. I did 2 drafts this weekend. I've got Tyler Higbee on both of these teams. I've got Tyler Lockett on both of these teams. I don't know why Tyler all of a sudden is the name that I've got to have on my teams, but I don't have Ronald Jones on either of them. And I love Ronald Jones and I wish I had him, but I still like the way that my teams came together. I love a ton of the players that I have on both of the teams. I feel like I'm in good shape. And as for playing the waiver wire, dude, every competitive fantasy football manager should play the waiver wire, whether you've got Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley on your team.
Well, I think that's the case.
Which I got in one team, or not. Or if you have a bunch of guys that are just okay.
The thing with Ben, though, is like
it's to feel good about it when it's over.
He takes like a very hefty amount of wide receivers, right? Like we see that a lot. And even in a 3 receiver league, he's taking like 6 or 7 guys. He's not playing all of them.
Right.
So what's he doing with them?
That's the thing. He's taking players that he likes, and he's even run into some situations where he sees, Mecole Hardman, who we know he likes, or I don't know if I've seen him draft Laviska Shenault anytime soon. We know he likes him, but he ends up running to these scenarios of he's going to end up starting Nyheim Hines week 1.
So I think that, you know what, I'm going to have this conversation with him, but I think where I sort of disagree with him is like he doesn't want a sort of average running back on his team. Like he thinks like Ronald Jones, maybe. I don't know how he feels about him specifically, but
he likes Ronald Jones.
Okay, Devin Singletary. Like these guys might be fine, but they're not going to be as good as Sutton and Chark, and so he'll just take the wide receivers there. But while I can actually think, I feel like it's okay to take a player that's not as good as another player you could take there, because you kind of need warm bodies at running back. It's just such a difficult position in fantasy. You could have really no options on waivers throughout the week. And so getting a guy who's just like fine, might score a touchdown and have a big week, or might give you 70 total yards, like that's not that bad. And I think I see more value in taking just sort of like a guy whose ceiling is like a number 2 running back. I see more value in that than Ben does. But I'll let him. I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Right. It's like he takes a perfect example. Will Fuller versus Marvin Jones. Like I see Will Fuller as a league winner. He sees Will Fuller as a league winner. He doesn't see Marvin Jones as a league winner. I think Marvin Jones has a very good floor. So like if Marvin Jones plays 16 games, as we saw last year, for example, or as we saw, I think it was 2 years ago, he has a chance to be, as Dave put it, one of those number 3 receivers that has number 2 receiver upside. He may not be a top 10 guy. He could if things go fantastic for him. But if Will Fuller hits as the DeAndre Hopkins replacement and plays 16 games, that's a top 10 type guy.
Well, quite frankly, I think Ben's entire strategy is predicated on avoiding running backs in the dead zone, rounds 3 through like 5 or 6 for him. I think that's basically that is Ben Gretch's strategy, and I see a lot of merit to it because those guys are busts very often. But I also see the other side. All right, anyway. We should probably take a commercial break, which we haven't done. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll fire through some emails on fantasy football today. Fantasy football at CBSI.com. This is from Todd, Who could be this year's DST that helps you win your league? I feel like the Chargers could be a good option. They have the best secondary in football and face an easy quarterback schedule, much like the Patriots last year. Who's the league-winning DST?
I think the Chargers could absolutely be that DST. You're going to have some guts to start them when they play against Kansas City. But outside of that, they've got a fantastic schedule this year. They've got a great pass rush to go with that secondary, by the way. That's a dangerous combination.
All right, this is from Lonnie. Dear Datum, Jave, Hamey, and Beeth, could you guys talk a little bit about Dawson Knox, Bills tight end Dawson Knox? As a fan who watches the team closely, he's supposed to have a much bigger role this year. I'm excited to see what he can do. Feels very similar to Mark Andrews last year.
No way.
They're the same. They're kind of the same type of, not exactly the same type of player, but Knox is more receiver than blocker, but there's no way he's doing what
I actually liked him before the Diggs move. And then once they added Diggs, like they're going to be in a lot of 3 receiver sets. Those guys are going to, command targets. Well, he's fighting with Cole Beasley to be the 3rd target at best. And that's kind of what the running backs do.
At the very least, he will play a lot because if they're in 3 receiver sets, that means a tight end will be on the field. He'll probably be that tight end.
All right. Next email is from Shane. PPR league, 14-team PPR league, 3 receivers and a tight end. How do you rank Kelsey and Kittle versus Hill, Godwin, or Eckler? Pick 16 overall. Like, are you looking at a tight end there or what? It's a 14-team PPR league with 3 wide receivers.
No, it's a 3 wide receiver and tight ends count with the receivers.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, 3 wide receiver / tight end spots. Okay. Oh, no, they lose value for sure. But Kelsey has been a top 10 wide receiver 4 straight years in PPR.
He just happens to be behind these guys that Shane named in the email.
He's like wide receiver 8 through 10, and Kittle's like 10 through 12.
Okay.
Kittle might be a little farther than that.
Oh, man, that receiver core looks terrible right now.
I know. That's true. It's a good point. But you know how they like to spread the ball around in that offense in the passing game. Well, apparently Brandon Aiyuk is going to be that guy. And I don't know who else.
Well, I'd like to read more emails later in the week, and I promise I will. Sleepers, breakouts, and busts this week. Also follow us on Twitter. I'm at Adam Azer, at Jamey Eisenberg, Jamey, at Dave Richard, singular Dave Richard. I'll be asking you guys for your favorite sleepers, breakouts, and busts throughout the week, so you can follow me on Twitter and be a part of the show. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. We will talk to you on Tuesday. We got Twitch Tuesday night. We got Sleepers Tuesday morning. We'll talk to you then.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.